The moment Alicia held her daughter for the first time, she promised herself she would never stop fighting for her. Amara was born at 4:47 in the morning, 7 pounds and 2 ounces, with her father's forehead and her grandmother's eyes. The delivery nurse placed her on Alicia's chest and stepped back, and the room went very quiet except for the soft, wet sound of a newborn discovering the world. Alicia pressed her lips to the top of Amara's head and cried. Not because she was scared. Not because she was in pain, though the pain was real. She cried because she had been alone for 11 hours. And she was still alone now, and somewhere across 3 time zones, her husband had his phone on silent while he stood beside a Vegas pool, holding a drink he definitely didn't need. Andre had known the due date for months. He had helped pick out the crib, had painted the nursery a soft sage green that Alicia had chosen from 37 swatches. He had been present for every appointment, every ultrasound, every late-night conversation about names and daycare and what kind of father he wanted to be. And then his college roommate planned a bachelor trip to Las Vegas for the weekend of April 12th. The due date was April 16th. 4 days later. Andre had said it would be fine. He had said he would leave the moment she called. He had said these things the way people say them when they are already committed to believing everything will work out, because working out is more convenient than reconsidering. Labor started at 6:17 on the evening of April 11th. Alicia called Andre 4 times before the contractions became too close to manage a phone. Each call went to voicemail. She sent 3 texts. None were answered. She called again from the hospital intake desk, and again from the bed where a nurse was already reading her paperwork, and again at midnight when the nurse asked quietly if anyone else was coming. There was no one else. By the time morning arrived, Alicia had stopped calling. She focused on the ceiling tiles above her and the nurses who moved in and out of the room with quiet efficiency. And she got through it the way she had always gotten through the hardest things in her life, 1 breath, 1 minute, 1 hour at a time. Amara arrived before sunrise. Andre arrived at noon the following day, smelling like hotel soap, carrying a stuffed giraffe and an apology that started with the words, "I didn't know it would happen this fast." Alicia looked at him from the hospital bed. Then she looked at her daughter, sleeping in a bassinet 3 feet away. "She's beautiful," Andre said. Alicia nodded. "I should have been here." She nodded again. He stayed 2 hours. He held Amara twice, took photos, ordered food from the hospital cafeteria, and talked about the drive-in from the airport. He was present the way people are present when they are trying to demonstrate that they have arrived. When he left to go home and get things set up, Alicia didn't ask what things he meant. She already knew the apartment wasn't ready. The car seat was still in the box. She had been the one managing the checklist for 3 months, while Andre traveled for work, and made promises about what he would handle before the baby came. None of those things had been handled. The discharge nurse the next morning was a woman named Carol, who had been doing this job for 22 years and had the kind of efficient warmth that comes from seeing everything twice. She reviewed the paperwork and looked up at Alicia. "Is someone meeting you at the entrance?" Alicia dialed Andre's number. He answered on the 4th ring. He was on his way. 20 minutes, traffic. 40 minutes later, Carol helped carry the discharge bag to the lobby while Amara slept in Alicia's arms. They waited. Automatic doors kept sliding open and shut as other families moved past. Fathers with car seats, grandmothers clutching flower arrangements, toddlers in superhero shirts running to meet their new siblings. Andre pulled up 63 minutes after the original call. He had stopped for coffee. "I would have gotten you something," he said as he put the car in park. "But I didn't know what you'd want." Alicia secured Amara's car seat herself. Something had shifted in her somewhere between the lobby and the car. She couldn't name it yet. She only knew that it sat low and still in her chest, like a stone that had finally settled to the bottom of a river. The apartment looked exactly as Andre had left it before his trip. 3 days of dishes in the sink, a half-finished sports drink on the coffee table, his shoes beside the door where he had dropped them, not beside the rack 2 feet away where they were supposed to go. Nothing had been assembled for the baby. The bassinet they ordered was still folded in its shipping box in the corner of the bedroom. Alicia stood in the middle of the apartment with Amara in her arms and looked at the life she had been building for 2 people who were supposed to be building it together. "I was going to do all of that this week," Andre said from behind her. He was reading something on his phone. "Okay," she said. That night she assembled the bassinet herself, while Amara slept in the center of the bed surrounded by pillows. Andre had offered to help, and then fallen asleep on the couch by 9:30. She sat beside the bassinet afterward and looked at her daughter's face. Amara's tiny fingers were curled against her cheek. Her eyelids were still slightly swollen from the birth. Alicia made her decision quietly, without drama, somewhere around 11 o'clock. She called Sasha the next morning. "Tell me honestly," Sasha said before Alicia had finished her second sentence. "How bad?" "He was in Vegas when she was born." The pause lasted long enough that Alicia thought the call had dropped. "Come here," Sasha said. "Bring everything you need. Come here. You have Leon's physical therapy today. Leon can do his exercises without me." A brief silence. "This is your house too. It always has been." They packed in stages. Alicia focused on Amara's things first: essentials, clothes, formula, diapers, then her own clothes, her work files, her laptop. She left the wedding photo on the nightstand, not out of sentiment, but because she didn't know yet what she wanted to do with it, and taking it felt like making a statement she wasn't ready to sign. She left Andre a note on the kitchen counter. 4 words: "I'm at Sasha's." He came home to an apartment half empty in ways that took a full hour to fully map. Then he called. "Why didn't you tell me you were leaving?" "Because I wasn't asking for permission," Alicia said. A long silence. When Andre spoke again, his voice had shifted into the careful, measured tone she recognized from his work calls. "Come on, Alicia, come home. We can talk about this properly." "Tomorrow," she said. "Call first." She ended the call before he could answer. Sasha's house smelled like coffee and the vanilla candle she kept on the kitchen windowsill. Leon came out of the back room walking carefully, on his bad knee to take the heavier bag without being asked. The guest room had fresh sheets and a nightlight already plugged in beside the outlet. That night, for the first time since Amara was born, Alicia slept more than 2 hours in a row. Andre arrived the next afternoon carrying a bakery box and the kind of prepared sincerity that comes from rehearsing an apology in the car. He sat across from Alicia at Sasha's kitchen table and said the things he had decided to say. He was sorry. He should have left Vegas the moment he knew she was close. His choices within that impossibility had been wrong. He acknowledged that. He said he was ready to be the father he should have been from the start. Alicia listened to everything. "I believe you're sorry," she said when he finished. Something hopeful flickered in his expression. "But I'm not coming back." The flicker went out. She told him, calmly and without raising her voice, that this had not been one bad moment. It had been a pattern she had been naming to herself for 2 years and making excuses for out loud. The Vegas trip was only the moment she stopped making excuses. She was done being generous in ways she could no longer afford. "What does that even mean?" he said. "It means I'm filing for divorce." Andre left without the bakery box. His mother called the following week. She talked about Amara growing up without 2 parents under the same roof, about the sacrifices marriage required, about what Alicia was doing to their family. At one point, she said Alicia needed to think more carefully about this decision. "I am thinking about family," Alicia told her. "I'm thinking about the one I'm building for my daughter." The divorce was filed on a Tuesday, finalized 4 months later on a Wednesday morning in a courtroom, with pale blue walls and fluorescent lighting that buzzed faintly throughout the entire proceeding. Alicia signed where the judge pointed. Andre signed 2 minutes after her. They thanked the court separately and did not look at each other in the parking lot. Sasha was waiting outside with coffee. "How do you feel?" she asked. Alicia thought about it honestly. "Like I can breathe," she said. She went back to work when Amara was 3 months old. She had missed a system migration, a department restructure, and the hire of 17 new staff members. Her assistant had left 3 organized folders on her desk, labeled "Before you left," "While you were out," and "Now," which was either the most thoughtful thing anyone had ever done, or a very polite illustration of how much catching up she had ahead of her. She caught up. It took 6 weeks to feel like herself in that office again. 6 weeks of early mornings and questions she already knew how to ask, and relearning the muscle memory of being good at something she had always been good at. By October, she had stopped feeling like a guest in her own professional life. Amara, meanwhile, was growing with a speed that still caught Alicia off guard. She had learned to roll over in September. In October, she discovered her own feet with an intensity that suggested she suspected they were the most remarkable objects in the known world. Sasha's house had become home the way real homes do, not through any single decision, but through the accumulation of ordinary days. The coffee maker Alicia preferred, the corner of the living room where Amara's playmat lived, the habit she and Sasha had developed of sitting on the back porch after dinner, talking about nothing important. Leon's knee had gotten worse before it got better, and the physical therapist he had been seeing downtown had a 6-week waiting list for home visits. Sasha found someone else, a man named Cyrus who came Tuesday and Thursday mornings and had a calm, unhurried way of explaining what he was doing and why. Alicia met him the second Tuesday. She had Amara in her arms, running late for a call, and walked through the living room just as Cyrus was demonstrating a stretch to Leon. He looked up and gave the kind of quiet nod that didn't demand anything in return. She nodded back and kept moving. What she noticed over the following weeks was smaller than she expected. He always replaced the furniture the way it had been before the session, without being asked. When a grocery bag fell from the pantry and sent cans rolling across the kitchen floor, he picked them up before Sasha even registered the sound. One afternoon, he fixed the gate latch on the backyard fence because he had noticed it dragging and happened to have the right tool in his truck. "You didn't have to do that," Sasha told him. "The fence noticed," he said, and Leon laughed from the couch. The first real conversation Alicia had with Cyrus happened in the driveway on a Thursday, when they both reached their cars at the same moment. He asked how Leon was doing from her perspective. As someone who lived in the house, she told him honestly, better than he let on during sessions, probably, because Leon was stubborn about admitting when something hurt. Cyrus smiled and said he had already figured that out. They talked for 11 minutes. She knew because she checked the time when she got in her car. He noticed things. That was the part she kept returning to. Not the fence, though that had been kind. He noticed when Amara was starting to fuss before she had made a sound. He noticed when Sasha was having a hard week before Sasha had mentioned it to anyone. He noticed one Thursday that the mobile above Amara's playmat had stopped rotating, and he had it fixed before the session with Leon ended. "You fix everything in this house," Alicia said. "Only the easy stuff," he said. The fence wasn't easy. He considered this, then only the stuff that needs fixing. Amara had decided she liked him by the end of October. This was not an announcement. It simply became clear when she stopped watching him from across the room and started reaching toward him with both arms the moment he walked through the door. He always asked Alicia first. She always said yes. And Amara would settle against his shoulder with complete satisfaction, the way small children trust the people they choose to trust. Andre had been doing his scheduled visits, every other Saturday, punctual, bringing things Amara didn't need yet, sitting on the floor with her in good faith. Whatever had broken between them, he was showing up for his daughter, and Alicia was not going to minimize that. He showed up one Saturday in November and found Cyrus in the backyard with Amara on a blanket, narrating something about the clouds to her in the patient, slightly ridiculous way adults narrate to babies who cannot yet understand them. Alicia was in the kitchen. Sasha was somewhere upstairs. Andre stood at the gate for a moment before coming in. He watched Cyrus lift Amara into the air and make her laugh. Something crossed his face that Alicia saw through the window. She set down what she was holding and went outside. Later, after Andre had spent his 2 hours with Amara and said his goodbye and walked back to his car, he stood beside the driver's door for a long moment before getting in. He didn't look at the house. He just stood there with one hand on the roof of the car. She watched from the window the way she had watched him arrive for the first time after the divorce, looking for anger or grief or something she could name. What she found instead was understanding. He had finally stopped calculating the distance between where he was and where he might have been. He was just standing in the truth of it. He got in the car and drove away. Spring came in stages, cold mornings and warm afternoons, and then one day the forsythia along the back fence, blooming all at once like it had been waiting for permission. Cyrus had been coming to the house for 8 months by the time Leon's knee was fully cleared. His last session was on a Friday, and Sasha made dinner. They ate on the back porch because the weather had finally agreed to it. Leon told the story about his first week on crutches, with the embellishments that had grown in with each retelling. Sasha refilled everyone's glass before anyone asked. Amara sat in her high chair and applied mashed sweet potato to her tray, with the focused intensity of someone completing important work. Cyrus helped clear the table without being asked. Alicia was washing the serving dish when he came in with the glasses. "I'm going to miss these Fridays," he said. She looked up. He had his hands in his pockets. Outside, Leon was trying to teach Amara to clap, and her unsteady applause drifted through the screen door. "I've been coming here for 8 months," he said carefully. "And I think the part I've been looking forward to most is not the sessions." Alicia turned off the faucet. "I'm not asking for anything you're not ready for," he said. "I just didn't want to keep pretending I was only here for Leon's knee." The back porch was still laughing. The forsythia was bright yellow against the fence. Amara clapped again, delighted with a skill she had only just discovered. "I know you're not," Alicia said. She dried her hands on the dish towel and looked at him steadily. "I'd like to see where this goes," she said, "if you're patient." "I'm not in a hurry," he said. She believed him. She had watched him for 8 months. He was not a man who rushed the things that mattered. The summer that followed was ordinary in the best way. Farmers markets on Saturday mornings, where Amara insisted on carrying something she was too small to carry, and Cyrus let her believe she was managing just fine. Dinners on the porch when the evenings finally turned warm enough to stay outside. The moment in July when Amara, 14 months old and unsteady on her new legs, took 4 steps across the kitchen and fell directly into Cyrus's arms, because he was closest, and she had already decided he was safe. He looked at Alicia. She smiled and shrugged. "She picked you." In September, on a Sunday evening that looked like every other Sunday evening, dinner on the table, Leon arguing with Sasha about whose recipe was better, Amara refusing to eat anything she hadn't inspected first. Amara climbed down from her chair with her toy in her hand and walked to Cyrus with the deliberate, concentrated motion of someone on a mission. She held up the toy. He took it and looked at it seriously, the way he always took seriously the things she brought him. "Sigh," she said. Then she patted his knee twice. "Sigh, Daddy," she said, and went back to her chair. Nobody spoke for a full 3 seconds. Leon made a sound that was not quite a laugh and not quite anything else. Sasha looked at the ceiling. Cyrus looked at Alicia. Alicia looked at her daughter, who was now attempting to feed her toy to her cup. "Yeah," Alicia said softly. "That's right." Cyrus set the toy gently on the table. When Alicia reached across to straighten Amara's bib, his hand was right there, and she let hers rest beside it without making anything of it. They sat like that through the rest of dinner while the conversation picked up around them. Later, after Amara was asleep, and Leon and Sasha had gone in, they sat on the back porch with the last of the evening. The neighborhood had gotten quiet. The forsythia along the fence had long since finished blooming and gone green. Alicia looked at the yard. The swing Leon had hung from the oak tree last spring, the patch of garden Sasha had started and then enthusiastically abandoned, the spot on the grass where Amara liked to sit and investigate things. She had come here with 2 suitcases and a newborn, and no real plan beyond surviving the next day. She had not known that surviving the next day would eventually become something else entirely, something she hadn't expected to want again. "I used to think home was a place," she said. Cyrus was quiet beside her. "I don't think that anymore." He didn't say anything for a moment, then, "No?" She shook her head. "It's the people who stayed." He nodded slowly, like he had known that for a long time, and was glad she had found her way to it. The porch light hummed above them. Inside, the house settled into its nighttime sounds. The refrigerator, the clock in the hallway, the small specific creak of the floorboard outside Amara's room that Alicia had memorized her first week and checked instinctively now like a heartbeat. Everything she needed was already here.